action.
Arrowhead is first of all, it's an adventure, which is surprisingly complex. Characters with a lot of shades of gray. This is not your regular science fiction film.
It is proof, evidence that friends can get together and pull off a feature film.
We were pretty inexperienced and we probably had no right really to do something like this, but we did it anyway.
I had to wrangle all the friends I could think of into this ragtag team of people who believed in this really insane vision of making a giant movie for very, very tiny funds. I always knew I wanted to make a science fiction movie because they're not often made in Australia. We have a lot of deserts, and I thought if we could put one character in a desert, that would be the beginning of a great sci-fi story. So I wrote a story about a man and his robot friend on a desert moon. That's really where the seed of this whole long journey began.
Jesse talked about this project, Arrowhead, and I remember reading an early draft and thinking, yeah, this is cool. How are we going to make this feature film that involves monsters and spaceships and all this sort of stuff? We just don't have the money or the resources amongst us.
I was living with Jesse at the time. I, in my own way, kind of convinced Jesse to put it into a short film format.
We made a $600 short film. We tried to crowdfund the feature-length version. We were hoping to get $40,000 to make the feature. We didn't raise the money we needed, but it was a success in another way because it gave us exposure. And that's when TV1 called. TV1 were a paid cable channel. It wasn't quite as simple as this, but essentially what they said was, do you want our money? Pretty soon we had $180,000 to go build another shuttle, a slightly bigger shuttle, again, and go into the desert again.
I know it seemed like a little bit of money, but it was a lot of money to us.
I thought, surely, like, it sounds good, but is it for real? Surely there's a catch. And then it just kept going.
One of the first things we did once we got the funding was cast the movie, because we had the script already written, and we had to start filling up all these names and faces with real names and faces. And for Kai, the main character, we had someone very specific in mind. We had a very classical sort of, white bread hero, and Dan Moore's headshot came in.
Together with my wife, Leah, we were just being very positive, and we believe that the right role will come, and praying and believing and wishing for the opportunity and for someone to take a risk with someone to play his hero in his dream.
He's an Israeli actor and he's always typecast in certain roles, sort of darker roles, and I thought, he doesn't seem to suit what I had in mind. But as soon as his audition tape came in, we were all sort of banding together, so desperate to find our lead, that we watched it together, and the room was silent when he performed.
You used to be this high, right? That was you.
I remember when we all sat around, there was about 8 of us in the room, and we saw his audition tape all together, and the room was just silent because we were so engaged.
There was no other actor that wanted the role for the same reason he did, which was that it spoke to his soul.
It's about a man strong on the outside, but we find out that as he's going through those challenges, he's actually very, very soft on the inside. I'm very, very privileged to be here.
But we aren't the only ones still here, are we?
We found Alicia after a pretty extensive search for our lead female role. She had a very natural vibe about her that allowed her to bring a real truth to the role. She really needed to create a character in Taryn that didn't feel like a romantic love interest, because she's not. Her character's there to make Kai realize that humans are worth fighting for and living for again. And to do that, she needed to be very genuine.
Kai, do you even remember that man I'm talking about? I saw the short and I read the casting brief and I called my agent. I was like, I need to get on this film. Get me on this film, please. So he got in contact with Jesse. I didn't really know too much about the character or anything like that, but luckily I must have done something right.
One of the coolest things about working on a film is the idea of working on it on a soundstage with a real set. But we didn't. We had a very large garage in a suburban home, and we built this fantastic shuttle. Picture a boat, and flip that boat upside down. That's what it primarily looked like. And it's made out of wood, and then the filler is all dense cardboard. And then on top of that dense cardboard is gaff tape and a lot of junk.
Basically rubbish. Stuff we get from a secondhand store off the side of the road. I remember walking up and down our street, just looking at people's hard rubbish they stuck on the side of the road and kind of viewing vacuum cleaners and things like that. Everything that kind of looked kind of cool. To this day, I'll be walking down the street and I'll see a pile of rubbish and it'll always catch my eye and I'll see if there's something cool in there. which there usually is, but I don't have a use for it now.
Building the shuttle was a lot of fun, really. We would just hang out on the weekend and just piece things together. None of us have a building background, so we just had whatever tools we had on hand. It was exciting to paint it because it kind of put this clean slate and you stopped seeing the garbage bins and the toys that we'd collected, and it sort of became an actual spaceship.
Morning, brother.
Hey.
Good, man. You?
Good. Yep, she's in the back.
This is your arm.
Wow. Wow.
When I realized that this was actually going to happen, I can't say I was scared or daunted by the task. I was just ready to go. I always knew I was going to do this. One day I was just waiting for someone to have faith in me, and the moment that happened, when this faith happened, it was liberating in a sense. I kind of just thought, well, great, here's the chance. Let's get to it.
Everyone stand by. Here's the smoke set. We gotta fill into our atmosphere. Sweet. Come on, here we go. And roll sound.
Scene 15A, take 1, mark.
Action.
When we were in the shuttle, it was probably actually the easiest time to shoot. We had the most time, we were in a cool environment, but the hard thing about that was this shuttle was only, I don't know, 8 meters by 4 meters.
We were in a contained shuttle. The camera never moved more than 3 meters.
It wasn't very big, and we had to shoot so many scenes in here. So we had to be really creative in all these different decisions about blocking these scenes out and making sure all the scenes were really unique.
Arrowhead had some really cool props and costumes, and we knew some of the things weren't really going to work out once our actor got really physical. And that happened on day 1 with the combat suit. It started to break and we knew that it wasn't going to make it through.
Dan Moore, the guy who plays Kai, is so buff and ripped. In one scene, he, busted out of his shirt.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here, but I am convinced that when they're fighting, it's going to completely destroy the jackets. So we just need to realize what it looks like if we are halfway through shooting and the one jacket that we have is completely destroyed in the back. In a scene where you still need it, we have one jacket. It may completely disintegrate.
We may have to get another jacket.
Jesse and Gabe had a little discussion about where to go with the costume after that.
I think to have a different something that he wears.
Yeah, that's another option, later down the track.
I'd rather do that. That's too
We can have a story reason why he
specific.
changes clothes, but that... Yeah.
Later down the track, there could be something in there that he takes out of the cabinet, and that's why he changes for fight scenes, So an executive decision was made that he was just going to wear his compression shirt. And it was a bit of a mind play after that, trying to work out what would work continuity-wise and what we could get away with.
Ryan Stevens, as our production designer, was in charge of finding or creating all these props, but a lot of the props were handmade. They had to be handmade. With our weapons, that involved buying these sort of base model toy guns and then adding items that were found, unique items that we didn't have multiples of. So as a result, we only had one of each gun. And Kai's gun was pretty much in the whole film. You see it from the start till the end. And it broke almost immediately. It just snapped. These things are made of plastic.
I was just talking to Ryan an hour ago. He was like, just remember, don't break it, because it's our only gun.
That shouldn't be worth
And I was like, why is it our only gun?
We had mostly one of everything. There's lots of gaffer tape holding everything, so it doesn't fall apart. The gun that Kai uses, we taped it back, and you can see it a bit, but it plays into the kind of cobbled togetherness of the whole movie.
There was a bit of criticism from some of the crew that were saying, oh, you should have had, you should have known that you needed 3 guns. We always need a replacement for everything. It's like, well, that's wonderful when you've got a proper budget, but there's got to be give somewhere.
If you watch the film and look closely, you can see the gaffer tape holding this thing together because it was literally split in half. And if you look really closely, you can see the gun sort of warping and bending. I was also proud of it because it's just another problem that you have to make work. And the more problems that you have to make work in these independent film scenarios, the more proud you are, in a sense, that you did it despite everything not working.
We won't be running on time this entire shoot, but will it be on time when it comes down to it? Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, it will. We're gonna be all right. I'm feeling okay.
You'll need to look slightly above his eye. Just so there's a difference when you're watching Hatch, you're looking a little lower. Does that make sense?
Alright, that's fine. I don't need a marker. I can see I can look there. That's Reef.
Yeah.
And that's Hatch.
Oh, there's not much difference there. Can you go a little higher with Reef? That's Reef.
That's Reef?
Yep. And that's Hatch.
Nice.
That's really cool.
I'm going to stand up. Can you put the seat 2 inches back? We didn't have a very big team on Arrowhead, so our camera department was like 4 people. I had Eric Mashila as my first AC. Without that guy, I don't know how I would have done it. He guided me through every little step. And then as my second AC, I had Nathan Dalton. His enthusiasm and his smile just lifted the set all the time. But our gem was Wilson. Wilson was a one-man team, literally. He was meant to actually kind of controlling 2 departments. He was a grip and he was the gaffer. I never met the guy before we started shooting. I think he was maybe 19. A normal team would have at least 10 times the amount of lights to do any kind of scenarios. It's unheard of doing with this limited resources. What he did was phenomenal.
Scene 20 helo take 4, 20 helo take 4. Sound at speed!
When it came to sound, we were extremely tense and worried because all we could hear was planes, trains, automobiles, lawnmowers, birds, you name it, you could hear almost everything.
We shot in a tin-roofed garage, so very frequently in the shed when we were recording. We'd get a really good scene and I could tell, you know, the actors were really loving it and delivering their lines perfectly. And then all of a sudden there'd be like a dog bark or a plane fly overhead and yeah, we'd just have to cut and do it again.
Stand by for truck.
Luckily, we had a really, really cool, highly skilled, and probably the most experienced individual on set. And his name was Mike Ammon.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have a pack inside the helmet next to your face.
Okay.
Here's my concern. It's not the reflection, it's the shadows all over the back wall behind them.
Doesn't look like there's any good way to shoot it with the boom in it. So.
I had heard about this guy coming down and he just nails it every time. He's the best. We don't ever have to do ADR. And everybody was right. Mike nailed it. He nailed everything.
You could do it where you play the speaker and that is the audio of Reef. You know what I mean? So then they could take that and alter it however they want and then layer it over top of what exists.
Yes, that makes sense. Would you like to explore?
Beautiful voices. Sean McCallum's voice. Basically, we have all of Sean's lines pre-canned and essentially just cue it up on an app and then just tap them along as if he were here, so that way the actors can sort of hear the pacing of it all.
You heard that before?
Yes. It seems as if something on this moon is responding to your deaths vocally.
Dan would be delivering a really amazing piece of dialogue, and everyone was just on their toes. Everyone was on edge watching this, and it was delivered brilliantly. Then a plane goes over, or a bird chirps in between it and just breaks it, and we would all, at the end of the take, we would look to Mike, and Mike would be like, I got it, it's cool. And we were like, really? And we were just like, okay, we're gonna trust this guy. We'd get into post, we'd be doing sound, we'd be listening to it, 100% nailed it.
All right, everyone, that's a wrap on day 1. Thank you very much.
We had an amazing day out in Williamstown on HMAS Castlemaine.
When he rolls over. I see, so that's actually 2 shots. Let's do a rehearsal quick. Yeah.
It was really small and pokey inside, and the scene was amazing that was playing out. 2 really strong actors.
3, take 1 mark.
You throw a wolf into a cage, and all you're gonna get is an angry wolf.
One of the other great props was these muzzles, and it required far more finessing than grabbing bits and pieces of junk and toys and trying to put it together.
The first week of production, we still didn't have the mouthpieces for Seraph P. And when you see that sequence, all of the prisoners have a mouthpiece.
We went and bought a MakerBot, and then we started getting them 3D printed, and it just wasn't working. We did everything right. Software, hardware, everything was plugged in correctly. The fix was so ridiculous and simple, but we literally, all we had to do was turn the muzzle upside down in the software for it to print correctly. That's all it was. We were up so late at night, and once we had got that done, I put one of them on and I took a picture, a little selfie, and I sent it off to Jesse, and his response in the text was great. It was just big caps, yes, so excited, thank you.
Nobody can see the prisoner's face, but another prisoner, Sanders, notices a tattoo on his arm. kill, die, or get out of the sky. The guards throw the man to his knees and pull a new chain from the edge of the pit. If they remove the hood and reveal his face. This is Tobias Hatch.
What happens if it rains?
We worry about that when it rains.
Jesse was really ambitious with Seraph P. Like there was like 120 shots storyboarded, or it was over 100 shots storyboarded. We're at this quarry, there's no toilets, there's no electricity, there's nothing. The rocks are sharp, there was lots of wind. There were a lot of challenges.
We were shooting in a quarry. It was really a pit in, in nowhere. It was like a hole in the ground.
We didn't have a lot of time, and that was the nature of the whole shoot. Like there was never enough time.
A lot of our shots, about a third of our shots, had to be thrown in the trash can. And it was heartbreaking at times, but because Sam and I have that quick way of communicating, and because we align in a lot of ways, we became very fast at rethinking and repatching scenes.
I'd imagine your legs out there, and your left hand.
The entire crew was down in this quarry pit. It's black, it's hot, pointy stones. We got big burly prisoners. Lots of pressure to pull this off.
We were just so unprepared for everything. Like we didn't have the big trucks, we didn't have kits, there was always some new thing we needed.
One of the best moments of the movie, in my opinion, is when Dan Moore loses his foot.
We didn't have stunt replacements for Dan Moore. Dan did his own stunts.
I'm not letting anyone do my stunts. I think that's part of the fun, and I'm grateful to get such a role where there's so much to do.
It was just a credit to Dan Moore himself. I remember when we shot that, we didn't have the right safety equipment, we didn't have the right paddings to work with, but it didn't stop Dan. He wanted the best thing for the movie, so he was willing to do anything.
We were chained and dragged by those chains on the ground. I'm a very physical actor and person in real life. I served in the Israeli army for 3 years, but I never realized, I never thought this role, playing Kai, would be so challenging physically.
Well, you just ripped up some pads off something. I can't remember what it was just some kind of cushioning. We chucked it inside his pants. And these stones they were light, but they were sharp and they hurt. And he was willing to go all the way, and it really pulls off in this scene and looks beautiful. I mean, it's one of the few shots that I actually didn't shoot. I'm really tall, so getting really down low and running across the ground wasn't my thing, so Eric actually shot that shot, but he does a fantastic job.
Cool. You guys ready? Blocking. Blocking rehearsal's up. A lot of you guys are starting to watch the tension build because you want some action, you want some excitement. But then the tension is broken when an alarm sounds. And up there, Hatch and 2 guards, Adam and Robert, are going to come down this walkway where Alison is coming down now.
So we had to create a hood for Hatch. Jesse and Ryan actually wanted that scene to be a throwback to the short film, because in the short, the opening scene is this beautiful shot of Kai walking up the sand dune, and he's sort of got this hooded piece in what he's wearing. We just wanted to sort of mirror that, just to tie it to the original short, because that's obviously where it all started.
Cool beans.
Can you spin a little bit? Then I gotta get Akira's left.
My name's Adam Tui. I am stunt coordinator on Arrowhead, and I also play Burly Man. My role really was to make the fight scenes look as realistic as possible. You know, we weren't working with anything fancy. We were really just doing smash and bash type fighting, realistic. We had to choreograph each of the scenes with Jesse, the director.
I wouldn't necessarily want to see him flying. Okay. It just needs to feel like it's so much more powerful than the first one.
Definitely a big hit.
So you get to give him a bit of a push, and you don't get to push him so much.
We did quite a bit of training on just how we were going to execute each move for each scene, worked through it. Both Dan, who's got a good martial arts background, and Mark, to try and see what they felt comfortable with and see what was going to look right for the shots.
It's a very physical role. We are on location in pretty much most of the film. There's a lot of down, dirty action, rocks, dust, mud, sweat, and I can't tell you how much fun that is. It is brilliant, I love it. Apart from the daily decision-making processes of what we need to get done in a certain amount of time, I think that's more challenging than any environment thing or physical thing.
You dropped him, and he still had a little bit of life in him.
said get down!
So maybe the middle of the eyebrow there.
This eyebrow? Oh, sorry.
He was aiming for this one, so his right eyebrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of blood pouring down.
Those days, there were a lot of prison guards, a lot of background extras, and all of these actors required tattoos, required to be dirtied up. There was a lot of actual brutal bashing scenes as well, so there was a lot of on-set effects, blood work and gore.
Akira's now on the ground. Burly man's gonna wrap the chains up in his hands and smash his skull into a pulp with the chains. I'm excited about that bit.
We got through those 3 days of Seraph P. The sequences were looking fantastic, and then it was back on set again, back into the little garage, shooting the internal scenes.
Am I gonna like what I see?
I don't know.
Dan Moore is Arrowhead. Without that guy, I don't know how we would have put off such a great piece. And it wasn't just his acting skills, which were phenomenal. It was also his look on camera.
If we didn't have someone as passionate as Dan, the movie would have had a certain falseness about it, because your actors need to believe in the characters they're creating for it to have any kind of life.
He was so passionate about this movie, and he was so passionate in the emotional, powerful scenes where he would have to slam into the engine like he did. And I remember we just got like a couple pillows and we put it on top. He just started smashing and smashing and smashing into it.
Before we started shooting, I had done some blood work, some bruise work on his knuckles, so it looked like he'd been punching the machine.
And then we cut the scene and we all look up and the pillow had moved like 2 feet to the left and the engine was just rubble. He didn't want to break the tape because he just was so into it, he literally destroyed it. And that blood that you see in that shot, that's real blood.
The more I heard, the more I love it and the more it feels truthful.
He had this desire to create it, to create the role of Kai. And that's invaluable, and it continued to be invaluable as we went on through this really arduous process of making the movie.
Basically what you're hearing is T minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the shuttles will go.
The moment where Kai launches towards the desert moon begins when he first enters the shuttle, and we see it rocketing down this long space corridor.
Doors are going to open into outer space. You're going to see that. Sam and the lighting guys are going to start up this elaborate whoosh, 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 whoosh. Accelerating past those lights.
We had to think of really smart ways to do cool effects, but ways that we could shoot them.
Don't force it, but just be aware that when you do this, it looks a little more dynamic.
Okay.
And you walk towards, wondering what it is. Okay.
Ryan Stevens came up with this really great gag of the shuttle flying through this hallway.
Ryan put together a little animated mock-up for how it could look, and as soon as I saw that, I thought, yeah, we got to do this. So I showed it to Sam, and Sam started figuring out how to actually achieve it in person.
All right, Gav. Wilson.
There were so many discussions about which way the light's meant to spin, and it got a little bit chaotic for a little bit as we were figuring out how we're going to do this and how we're going to pull off this stunt. It was a really tough challenge for us as a group to solve.
All I want is for him to see those doors open before it accelerates.
So basically, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to call action. I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The red head spins slowly, faster, and it's going to spin 6 times.
Willie rigged up this C-stand and chucked a pole through it and just chucked a red hand on the end.
I'm sure in a big budget American movie, they'll have a much cleaner way to do it, but we just had to figure it out ourselves, which was really fun and exciting.
So Dottie,
maybe
like 1 second before you lift, like maybe 2 seconds, not 3. You got everything covered?
Let's do a full run through.
Let's do a full run through.
The first time we did it, it didn't end so well.
Wilson was there, ready to go. He started turning the thing, and everyone's looking up, looking at each other. It's actually going to work.
It goes around 1, 2, 3, and we're like, oh, we're getting this shot, it's amazing, it's cool. But then the light spins and then it disappears, and I'm like, we're not at the point where it's meant to disappear yet.
Oh, lost the light. And cut.
That's a cut.
And then it pops, and like, oh.
The light fell off.
It just went black, and this big crash, and one of the redheads had broken. So yeah, we're down to 2 redheads after that point, with no spare globes, I believe.
Once you have the glass on the ground, guys.
But after we did it a couple of times, it worked out fantastic, and the lighting just sells the whole thing.
14A, take 2, mark.
And action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And moon. It was really cool to see the process of that original line of action on the page become this little animated storyboard that Ryan made to this really great piece of teamwork from all the crew banding together to the final shot in the film.
Cut! Cut! Great. So there's only 2 shots looking this way. That's Santa's perspective and the close-up on the drone.
And then one more. When the creature jumps, flips, karate kicks.
How many?
In a wide. Real big wide.
A wide karate kicking. We're talking for all the shots. No, that's all creature shots. Cool. 4 creature shots. That's why I was saying 4 shots. I meant 4 creature shots.
Just through. Thanks.
My love of science fiction movies is completely in line with a different era of science fiction movies, which is when you would use practical models and practical puppets and real objects in camera. For multiple reasons, I wanted to go practical. I wanted to build real creatures to have on set.
My name's Ed Yates. I'm the creature effects supervisor on this project. So I've sculpted and moulded and fabricated and painted these creatures.
I had drawn some sketches of what I wanted the creature to look like. Ryan had drawn some sketches of what he thought the creature should look like, and we showed these to Ed because he was in charge of actually creating the thing, and Ed made these amazing mini maquettes that we thought were perfect, and then he had to spend the next couple of months building them in full size.
I've sort of taken it in my own direction. I've used elements from praying mantis, the mantis shrimp. There's a little bit of turtle in there. There's a little bit of salamander. I've sort of modified it to make it also something that I could do as well. So it's kind of been what's been practical for me as an artist to do a bit. It's been a lot of work getting these done. So yeah, and I'm quite tired, and I'll be relieved once this, once it's shot actually.
Working with the prosthetic creatures was super fun, super cool. It was really great to see them up close. And I was actually really intimidated by them at first. Like when they first were brought to set, I thought they were terrifying, which was kind of useful because I'm meant to be scared of them. That was unique. I've never worked with anything like that before, and I've never seen them to such detail.
Great, reset. And Dan, could you come further back on the stool, please? All you know is that this guy's tied up. Somebody cares about his being threatened. You don't know anything about the fact that he has a creature inside. Good stuff, Willie. Yeah. Willy Wonka. What are you going to do about it? Okay. What prevents this? Nothing? Jesse, you ready? Okay, pictures up. Quiet, please.
Tell me, how long do you think she'll last? How many more breaths will we get to listen to coming out of her pretty mouth?
Mark Redpath initially wanted to do it with an American accent, and I said, no, I really don't. I cringe a little when I hear Australian films faking American accents as if they're cooler or something. So I said no, and he said, let me just give it a go. And he recorded a monologue of his character in this American accent and sent it to me. And I said, you know what, you won me over. You can do it in an American accent.
The problem was we'd already shot this previous scene.
We shot a little scene with Mark 3 weeks before we shot out the full feature.
I confirm.
We had to actually have that pre-recorded. So before the actual principal photography began, we had to do a green screen shoot with Mark Redpath. At the time, Jesse's plan was Australian accents, that everyone would do their own accent.
Sabotaging for terrorist operations.
So Mark actually re-recorded it, and you wouldn't even know. Watching that scene, it's perfect.
We're just starting to get interesting.
So after we did the 2-week shoot in Melbourne, we had to drive out to Coober Pedy, and we didn't have the money to fly, so we had to drive. And we had to take the shuttle out there, which was like probably the weight of a whale.
It was heavy, it was wood, it was wide, and it was long. And so I got a measuring tape, and I was like, oh, that's wide, and like 6 meters long. And I sort of said to Ryan, hey Ryan, what's the plan getting this thing to Coober Pedy? And he's like,
It was really useful to have Brad Sage, who's Jesse's brother-in-law, to assist us building the spaceship. He's a carpenter, so he actually knows what he's doing, as opposed to all of us. And he had the mindset to build the exterior spaceship in, I think we had 6 sort of module pieces.
So I found the biggest trailer we could find, because the trailer was the cheapest option, and my Subaru had a tow ball.
We're on a road trip to Cooper Pedy, South Australia.
It's 18 hours to get there. We did that in a convoy. There was a 12-seater bus with no seatbelts, 2 sedans. We picked up an RV in Adelaide, and then us with 4-wheel drive, hauling a trailer of spaceship with us. The drag that was on that spaceship, you could actually see the petrol gauge moving.
You get to a certain point in South Australia where there is no petrol station for a long time. So I had to have all these jerry cans full of petrol, and we drove for like an hour, filled up the petrol tank again, drove again, just to get through these Ks.
So we drove out to Cooper Pedy, which is pretty much in the centre of Australia. It really is a bizarre other world that you're living in. And kind of, I reckon if you stay there long enough, you might get a little bit crazy. And I guess we went a little bit crazy after 2 weeks.
On the way, it kind of got half destroyed. We kind of had to screw it all back together.
The terrain was crazy. And to try and get this shuttle actually on set and dump it where Jesse wanted it was a challenge in itself. I mean, like, we're trying to get up this hill. There was one point where my car's up on 3 wheels.
The adventure of being out in the desert was something I'd never experienced before. It was really hot in Cooper Pedy, and it was hot all day.
The flies were constant throughout the day, and it was almost like each day they went home and told their friends and family, because there'd be more every single day.
The flies, you can't begin to imagine. We all had these fly nets over our face. On the first day, people were like, I don't need it, I'll be fine. But probably by the second day, everyone had these fly nets, because practically we just needed them. For days, weeks afterwards, I would still be hearing these flies in my mind as I'm going to sleep during the day. Anytime, I'll just hear these flies.
The flies. I'm still trying to figure out why they're here. I don't know. It's almost as if like, okay, you know, we're going to have a plague, and part of the plague is we're going to have heat, and we're going to have flies. And you know what? We're just going to put all that in a pot and see how you guys handle it, you know?
I'm not sure how many flies are going to appear in this film, but that's probably been our main bugbear for the shoot.
I've never, ever in my entire life seen as many flies, like, ever. And you know what? My uncle used to own a manure factory.
If this is what the atmosphere is doing to metal, imagine what it's doing to human tissue.
So this really awesomely iconic constructed garbage bin space helmet is actually like 2 pieces, and it was like a back and a front, and it would go down and it would lock like that.
You couldn't take off yourself, really. Someone had to come and put it on your head and lock it in place. So just before they yell action, put these bolts in, close it, run out of the set, and wait for her air to run out before she started calling me over to open it back up, and we call cut.
When it came to the take ending, immediately Ryan would jump in, unscrew it, open it up so she could get all this great like fresh air and flies.
We were located on an old mining site. It was called Ben's Opal Mine or Ben's Opal Field, because the cheapest way to get location permits was for me to become a prospector. The site was dangerous. I mean, we had to be really careful. You know, there was certain no-go zones, and we basically mapped out where all the shafts were, all the holes were, because I mean, you could die. You could break your leg, you could break your neck, just if you just stepped out and it was straight down, and it's like 4 or 5 stories straight down. So we set certain rules up in play. No one was allowed to go wandering off by themselves, particularly when it got dark. It could be said that we weren't doing everything by the book, but we were doing things safe enough to not risk anyone's life, and we didn't lose anyone.
And action!
Cooper Pedy was tough, without a doubt. We were in the middle of nowhere. We had just one portaloo and no escape from the heat.
I remember the first day of 2 weeks shooting out there, at lunchtime, being broken and thinking in my mind, I'm not going to get through this, and I don't know how to get out of this. I'm with my friends, I don't want to let them down. I've committed to this. I cannot do this for another 2 weeks. You just got to work hard. So that's what I did. Somehow managed to get through that afternoon, got through the next day, and you just build up the muscles.
The first 2 days kicked our butts. Shots, scenes were just dropping like flies.
We would start at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would shoot through to, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
And we were averaging about 13 shots a day. We'd planned about 22 to 25 shots a day, but we quickly realized we just couldn't move that quickly in that heat.
We had to dramatically cut shots, and we were basically just getting coverage at some point.
We were losing. I remember sitting with key heads of department, and we were just looking defeated, and we had no idea what we were going to do. But Jesse did. And the way he did it was get up and he would grab Sam and they would go out earlier before all the rest of the crew did and reimagine and refix and almost rewrite a lot of what needed to get done because we were losing so much.
When we realised we couldn't achieve all the storyboards we created, Sam and I had to show up early every morning to the set, throw away everything we loved and start again from scratch. Particularly evident in the scene where Kai is taken by the creature underground. That scene was meant to be a big squid attack with, you know, CGI tentacles coming up out of the ground and grabbing him, and it was going to be a lot more elaborate.
For how bad the days were, the nights couldn't have been more picturesque. As soon as that sun set, the flies disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we need to bring that kind of like hurried intensity to it then? Like feel like we're...
This is the way out.
Yeah.
You know, once you get him going.
But you kind of want that slow...
Hurried is the
little?
wrong approach.
Okay, so...
We will be hurried with our camera work.
Okay, so
and
we
with
just
our
need
shot,
that. Sure,
yeah,
sure.
positioning.
Was there another
Wilson?
Dito on up there? Speed.
Yeah, there's another data there. We did it twice, just to grab different coverage. That's maybe him standing.
Yeah, he stands up out of this frame, and you guys stay. Guys, we about ready to do this?
I'm ready, yeah.
37-8, take 2 mark.
Okay.
Good. You guys set? Camera set?
Thanks, Steph.
Chris's character, Oleander, wakes up outside and starts freaking out and getting a little crazy. And the whole crew was there watching that happen.
I remember the tone in his voice. It was just really powerful watching him and the performance that he had. I feel like everyone was sort of really enthralled and just there was such a real quiet on set.
Everyone kind of smiled at each other between the takes and said, this guy's really good. So we were very privileged to have Chris on set.
Transforming into another creature was extremely challenging, and finding the right physical expression to show that and project that was tough. You know, I've got a background in dance, and I've got a wife who's a professional dancer, ballet dancer for many years.
He brought his wife Leia with him, and so she was there sort of observing without a real role, and she would encourage Dan to use his body in ways that brought a whole nother dimension to the character.
That helped us a lot to really discover that and be truthful to what is going on physically. You know, expressing pain, which is not really there. You have to find ways to do that, and you know, things like that was you know, took work and took its toll on me. I'm sore.
Leia was so essential to the project that we upgraded her to the role of movement coach. We made it official. The three of us, in a sense, became a little team creating Kai.
Cooper Pedy it's a desert, it's dry, people live underground to avoid the heat and the elements.
We had this hotel that we'd booked out, but we had this little patch of grass. It was probably the only grass within 1,000 kilometres. There was no grass anywhere.
You'd come back and you'd go and get snacks and just sit on the grass and everyone would just relax together.
We'd stay up late some nights, later than we should have, because we had 14-hour days in 40-degree heat the next day. But we needed those nights to just relax and rest and enjoy each other's company a bit more.
That's the part that I remember the most.
You couldn't help but get to know each other really well and feel like you were kind of a big family. It was something that will stay with us forever.
Production value was something that I was extremely concerned about getting because I knew we didn't have, you know, the same equipment that regular crews had. And one of those things I knew from the start I really wanted was flyovers, aerial footage. Even if we stuck a GoPro on a smaller drone and flew it through the desert, I knew we could figure out a way to use it. I want to get a little flying copter that could put a GoPro on it and just get GoPro footage for these really, really wides. Sam's not convinced they'll look any good.
I'm convinced they will look any good.
I'm convinced Sam can make them look good, he just doesn't want to.
Oh, it's not that. It's
I've
never seen it work.
The only good GoPro footage I've seen is by GoPro.
I want to stop thinking that way. I want to think about how we can make it work. Because otherwise, the alternative is hiring a helicopter for like a 20-minute window. He has to fly over us at a specific time. The actors have to be doing the right thing. That helicopter's not going to come around and do 5 takes.
You get a slightest breeze, like they're not easy.
Our producing team got together. Somehow, they went off and figured out a way to fly a guy from Sydney who had this massive 8-propeller camera drone that could carry our Red Epic camera. He was only there for a few hours, and the key image that I have in mind is where Kai and Reef are trekking over a mountain. A skeleton crew went out into this amazing part of Cooper Pedy called the Breakaways. Jasper, who was our flyover guy, he said we have 1 minute of battery time, so we have 1 minute of fly time before this thing comes plummeting down to the earth. The plan was to have the camera flying towards Kai And it didn't work because the framing was off. It was either tilted up or tilted down or something, but it didn't quite work. And I said, can we try again? And Jasper said, no, I'm sorry, like that's it, the battery's gonna die. And we were like, okay, pull it back in. So Dan doesn't hear this because he's far away from us. And the camera's still rolling as it pulls back. So it became this happy accident that we used this backwards camera motion instead of forwards camera motion. When Sam added in his alien sky and we added in a little tiny digital reef, it became a truly magical moment that upped the production value by miles.
It's not something they built. They found it, and we're on it.
One of the actors, Jamie Foster, who's played Sanders, couldn't make it to Cooper Pedy, so Jesse and Sam tapped me on the shoulder and said, oh, hey, how do you feel about putting on the spacesuit and getting out in front of the camera?
Steph's dressing me for my big day. They just don't want to stand out in the sun, so they send the boom mic guy out.
I was the closest in height to him. Although he is bald and has no facial hair, I have both facial hair and a lot of hair on my head, so it was interesting, but the character had a helmet on, so it was a bit of Hollywood magic.
The idea behind Mark's burn was we wanted to create an effect that made him look like he was inside an explosion. So thinking how to portray a third-degree burn that had gone right down and destroyed pretty much all the layers of the skin.
We also had to smash his helmet. I would say to Ryan, what side do we need the helmet to be broken on? We could only do this once, so we want to do it right. And then, you know, we sort of relayed the question to Jesse, and then we got an answer back, and that was sort of relayed back to someone else. And then for some reason, it was the wrong answer because it's broken on the wrong side.
But it still looked fantastic in the final cut.
It was made with blood, sweat and tears. Like, there is so much passion. Nobody didn't give 120%. Like, everybody put in.
The way that he gets into it is the way that he gets out of it as well. Like the way the actor gets into it is also the same hole he splits out of.
Do you need someone in there? Or?
Yeah. You want to get a sense that there's something in there, but she can't tell what it is until she gets like pretty much up to here, and then she's like, is that a man?
In the script, the monolith is described as a 6 foot tall translucent rock.
The shape is awesome. It's like exactly what that is.
So we had an idea of what we wanted to create. The challenge was figuring out what sort of materials we could use. We knew exactly kind of what we wanted to look like this glossy amber. Jesse would describe it as like tree sap. We just ended up creating sheets of casting resin. We used sort of an amber dye and chicken wire as well to create sort of a loose frame. We actually taped a lot of it together with packing tape.
That looks sweet.
Yeah, that looks good.
It's in front.
Nah, put it behind you.
It was a really important part of the story as well because it's a part of Kai's rebirth. Jesse had such a brilliant vision in his mind of what he wanted to see.
What am I supposed to do? You just stand there.
Yeah, that looks good.
Great.
That's awesome. I think it'll only take one whack to get through that monolith. Now, you're not going to actually be hitting the monolith. We've got a piece that we've made specific that you can cut into.
How much of that is being done right here, and how much of that is being done anywhere up there?
And action.
This was when we were shooting at the Opal Mine, so it was like a massive location. We'd picked a few different places where we were shooting, and we were setting up the monolith while we were shooting something else.
It's a science fiction film. Art department had a huge job. Looking back at it, I think what an amazing job that Steph and Ryan did. But gosh, it was tough for them. Like, things wouldn't always go to plan. Sometimes we'd forget something, or like one day the monster got left behind. Like the whole day was about the monster, and the monster got left behind. And I'm like going, how is this possible? Like the whole day is about the monster. But I say that with great love.
Can you give me an update on Chris?
Okay, you guys safe?
Yeah. Copy that.
Okay, I need him forward more. Stop there.
Okay, and pincers down.
We can't see because you're wearing black.
Up, down, slow.
Center roll.
Up, down.
How's that? That's great. We love it.
We're about to do a test run on our creature leaping out of the shuttle window.
Okay, you guys ready for this? So
onto the ground. It's a animatronic puppet, aka puppet, or animatronics. The challenge is to make it look realistic.
Yeah, they have to be keep it still like that.
These creatures included on-set goo and slime and dirt that was meant to be on them. a little bit of blood splatter as well. But it was also trying to keep them safe and intact as well, so we could use them for the entire shoot.
We very quickly dropped the attitude of protecting these things, and we just started throwing them around more, being more aggressive with them, making them more visceral, puppeteering them in ways that maybe they weren't meant to be puppeteered.
3, 2, 1, go.
This creature took 4 people to manipulate and sort of puppeteer. So people from different departments would get in and have a go at working on the different legs and having to practice to make it walk.
Samuel, you guys are going to spin Reef out, right? Yeah.
The days in the caves definitely had their disadvantages. It was very dusty, there wasn't a lot of air in there. But even though we just were breathing in dust and coughing up dust, it was so much better than being outside with the flies and the heat. And so it was kind of the lesser of two evils.
Turn your sound off. Turn the sound. Could you give him the line reading? It's sounding, because you're yelling, Dan, you tend to slip away from the accent when you yell.
Turn your light off.
Turn your sound off.
Turn your sound off.
Turn your sound off.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Shut the sound off. Shut the bass.
It was really great having Eric there because he knew the script so well, and also Dan was doing an American accent. So Eric also became the guy who was training him on the fly and sort of tweaking his nuances as we recorded takes. When Sam and I were straight out of high school, we went to film school in Michigan in the USA. We always knew one day if we got the chance to make a feature film, we would love for some of these great friends to be involved. Eric Mashila was a good friend of ours who'd kept in touch, and Eric worked with me very closely as executive producer, developing the script and really making it not only better in a story sense, but more filmable on the budget that we had. And his love of the project and the trust that we had in him and the trust that he had in us was absolutely essential.
Within the caves at Kurupedi, we shot the source chamber. There were 2 cocoons for the 2 bodies, which was for Kai and for Oleander. And we created these using paper mache and plastic bags. I wasn't sure how I was going to install the pieces in that location because it's a cave. I didn't know if I would be able to attach it to the wall. In the end, ended up creating some sort of like straps and pretty much just taping it to Dan and Chris. They never complained with all the things that we put them through. They were like, yeah, just do it, let's get it on there. They looked like 2 guys standing almost naked in a cave with big weird sleeping bags. At the time, you're wondering, is this really going to work?
Good. You'll learn something. You should have them. Where's her helmet?
Ryan, do that full slammy.
Angry. I'm so pissed.
3, 2, 1, go!
Everyone's favourite flying robot, voiced by Sean McAuliffe. There was just one of him. We thought about making a few multiples at the beginning, but we couldn't really afford it time-wise and money-wise, so we decided let's just stick with the Reef and we'll make him work.
Our original Reef, which was created for the short film, he actually got destroyed. We recreated him so he was back and he was better than ever. There is actually a connection between the 2 reefs because we have the original eye, so there's still a piece of the original Reef in Reef 2.0.
Today is a pretty big day for Reef. He's just earned his wings. He got pulled out of a spaceship, but he can fly now, and it's great. It's great for everyone except for me and my back, but it's still fun.
Reef did most of the work.
Say they try.
Alicia was a trooper. Taryn's helmet was quite hot in there. She'd stay in there as long as she could. She'd get through the scene and then she'd call me over, but she very rarely would, panic and give up.
Action!
My favourite shot in film is when Alicia playing Taryn runs out and sees these skate pods leaving. I think it looks amazing. It's probably visually my favourite shot in the film. But it was also Alicia's final shot of shooting.
That is a show wrap for Alicia.
Pretty much as soon as she finished that scene and turned around, we had this nice little moment where the crew all gathered together with the sun setting.
Thank you.
The flies were about to leave and the sky was just amazing.
I just wrapped.
Did you? And how does it feel?
Incredible. I feel really good. I feel happy. Thought I'd get pretty sad because I'm a crier, so I usually cry, but I was like, I'm not gonna do it.
Saying goodbye to Alicia at that moment was really special because when you achieve a shot like that on the best of days, it's a really celebratory moment.
We'd been on this epic journey with her for the last 4 weeks, and we said goodbye to Alicia in a really special kind of way.
We probably should have shot this movie over 30 days, not 22 days. But because of that, we decided earlier on that we couldn't use a dolly. Everything was going to have to be handheld or on the tripod. So there's not as much movement as I would have liked.
If I were to list all my favourite movies, a big part of their visual language is dynamic camera movements. You know, the camera pushing into people's faces at important moments. And we don't have any of those. The camera never moves in Arrowhead.
We didn't have a steady cam operator, so we couldn't run after a character. If we did, it was extremely shaky. But it was definitely a limitation, and we had to constantly think about it every single time we were shooting a shot. How can we make this dynamic? How can we make this look really interesting without too much movement?
Sam is so talented with framing. He's such a good leader of his department that he was able to achieve something, a visual look that was dynamic regardless.
I'm really proud of the way Arrowhead looks, but there was one particular shot where Dan has just realized that Alicia's gone. He runs out and then we reveal that this helmet is smashed, and reminding him of he's probably lost someone he loves. And then he falls to his knees. It's just gorgeous, that shot, and it's one of my favorite, the way it kind of drops and reveals this. I mean, it's also the emotion in the scene and also Brian's score in that moment as well. It's fantastic.
As much as we had achieved on set, and as great as the shots were, and as great as the performances were, none of it was going to come together unless we had an amazing score.
Ryan, he was never been a production designer before. He was involved in Arrowhead the short, and he then went on to be the composer. And the music composition is incredible, but he'd never composed a feature film before.
I was doing production design, but the main draw for me, I think, was the music. About 90% of the score is me playing on a keyboard. There's a few other sound effects, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of ambient sort of stuff mixed in, but the majority of it is piano and synth and kind of orchestral arrangements, which I had played on the piano and then kind of manipulated to build this kind of sweeping score.
He sat on his laptop while Sam and I were editing, and he created this whole score from scratch.
My mind boggles that this guy sat on his laptop with his headphones on creating the score.
It took a lot of trial and error, and there was a lot of layering involved. There are certain sounds that are very fake sounding that I tried to avoid using, and I would often mix it in with a lot of the other elements to kind of lift it out of the realm of fakery. There's a few kind of little motifs that pop up here and there. Kai has this kind of little 3-note motif which kind of hits at his kind of biggest moments and is altered slightly in his weakest moments. And there's a few kind of little delicate pieces which we use for Taron, which kind of pop up every now and then.
The layers that he used using just digital software are hugely impressive, and it gives the movie a real emotional maturity that none of us expected. The legacy that he left behind for this film is huge because you can feel him and hear him in every frame.
Throughout post-production, often I would swing by maybe once a week and see how Jesse and Sam are going, seeing visual effects come alive and stuff like that. They did have a lot of challenges though, and one of the key challenges was this scene that just didn't seem to work with Norman Oleander.
The original intention in the story, and it was even filmed this way, was for Kai to come across Oleander in the desert just before he meets Taron. And they have a bit of a conflict, and Kai ends up murdering Oleander and shooting him off a cliff. So by the time Oleander wakes up later in the movie, he knows who Kai is. He knows that Kai is a bad guy, which justifies why he goes so, crazy and angry towards Kai when they meet again. But we couldn't include that scene in the film because it just wasn't working the way we filmed it.
It was actually the first day that we went to the desert, which was one of our hardest days on set. We got there and it wasn't just the heat, it was these flies. They were driving us crazy, nothing was getting done, and we were kind of defeated out there, and we didn't shoot enough shots. We was meant to fall off a cliff, we didn't even shoot that shot, we kind of just does it off screen. The scene just wasn't working at all.
It just didn't feel quite right, so I said to Sam, what if we repatch this scene and rework it so that we don't meet Oleander yet?
Just for a slight moment, you can see the sleep pod, with no one there. So I get that frame, I cut out the sleep pod, the sky, the ground. I've used that image and put it on top of Oleander. Beforehand, it wouldn't be possible to delete him, but with a couple little tricks that I'd learned, just basic little tricks, it worked.
But it was also sad because I had to tell Chris that scene had been cut. And I think he was a little concerned at first because his character didn't make as much sense and it wasn't as well-rounded now. But what we all understood through that conversation was that, you know, sometimes one part has to be sacrificed to serve the greater whole.
There was like 300 visual effects shots, and Jesse and I had done like 90% of them.
It was months and months more work without any help, without any resources.
We found some 3D artists like Lucas Schrank, who did a great job on all of our ships flying through space.
There are a few key effects shots that we outsourced to freelancers who did a much better job than we could have. But essentially it was he and I in a room making movies together the way that we always did as kids.
I remember just every day getting up with Jesse, making sure we pumped out these shots. We just sat next to each other, just doing effect after effect after effect. Fake reef screens, sky replacements. A lot of the skies are actually replaced because every single day out there was just dead blue, so there's no clouds. And getting rid of flies, adding little mountains in the background, fixing the monolith, making it glow, just amplifying the movie and making it feel more high-end. There's actually 2 shots in particular that were the hardest because they were actually the point of view from the monster running towards reef. And in both shots, the ground's moving. But I actually just came up with a quick solve because I was like, Jesse, I can't do this to perfection. I can get it pretty right, but I can't get it to cinema grade quality. So we actually just changed the monster's look to have this kind of blue glow coming out of it, and it kind of made a pretty cool effect. You could really tell that you're looking through some kind of point of view. I mean, on a high budget movie, you could spend thousands of dollars just doing the most simple things. If you know how to do it yourself, you can just do it on your computer or an iMac. Everyone that was on set, I feel like, played a big part of creating this thing. It's kind of like a dream come true that we could do this and pull it off.
It was really awesome to just be able to see how far we'd come as a group of friends.
Arrowhead means a lot to me. It's my best buddies together working, making a film. But more importantly, it is proof that it is possible.
Looking back now, there's a romantic sense to it. It was hard work, but there was something exciting and adventurous about it. And I think that's why it's so special to us. Like when we see this film, you know, I'm thinking, what was required to get that shot was a lot of work from a lot of people doing stuff extraordinarily difficult.
From day one, the first day we turned up to set and we started shooting, it was just reminding myself to just be a filmmaker. And I felt for so long we were just pretending to be filmmakers. And then by the end of the film, we were filmmakers.
We were doing a no-holds-barred, confident, bold, colourful sci-fi film set in a sci-fi world with all the kinds of iconography you'd see on, you know, pulp science fiction novel covers. And we embraced that and we did it proudly. This stuff just doesn't get done. So to do something like that felt like we were really pioneering something. When we get to do that with people you really care about, I don't think there's anything in life that's more satisfying.
Arrowhead class, Model B. Nothing that suits you.